Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Cecilia, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you've joined us for today's Battery and Precious Metals presentations. Our next live presentation comes from Power Nickel. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you are interested in scheduling a meeting with Power Nickel, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. You will be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Terry Lynch, Chief Executive Officer of Power Nickel, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol CMETF and on the TSXV under the symbol PNPN. Welcome, Terry.
Thanks for having us. Great to be here. Just on the symbol, I just heard that tomorrow we'll start trading under PNPNF, which is just like our symbol in Canada, only with the F. So that'll be a new development for us. Obviously, with a name like Power Nickel, we're going to talk to you about nickel, and we think we're on the verge of discovering Canada's next low carbon, high grade nickel sulfide mine, and it's basically an interesting story. I'm sure you'll find it pretty compelling. So what we'll tell you about is we're currently drilling right now, have been drilling for the last 4 months. That will enable us to update our 43-101. It'll also allow us to have a number of news releases. So we're expecting to get more drill results out in the next couple of weeks, and every 3 or 4 weeks from there on until July. Often a good time to be involved in mining companies is when they're reporting on their drilling results, and especially if you feel the drilling program is going well, and we have definitely indicated to the market that the drilling program has been going well. We're trading at a pretty substantial discount to our peers. We'll walk you through that. It's a discount that's pretty compelling at the moment, but it's also likely one that will grow. We've got some pretty big possible shoes to fill. Right now, the deposit size is roughly modeled around 5 million tons. We expect ultimately, as it grows up, that the analogs for us in the ultramafic deposits are sort of 20 to 50 million tons in Lynn Lake and Voisey's Bay, and we would think we'd ultimately end up being in there. We're in the backdrop of, I think, of a commodities bull market across the board, and nickel is certainly a participant. Our project is not just nickel; it's got copper, cobalt, and a significant amount of palladium. And in addition to our great nickel story, there's also going to be a spin-out of our copper gold properties, and they're pretty substantial. So let's dive into it. Where are we located? Well, we're located in Quebec. Quebec is arguably the best jurisdiction in the world to be exploring for critical minerals today. Why would I make such a bold claim? Well, in addition to having really favorable, government relations and there being pro-mining, and the Quebec government's done an amazing job of providing infrastructure to the north. So we're right off a major highway, like a 4-lane highway. And right across from us is a major Hydro-Quebec substation, so we have cheap hydroelectric power. We're about 8 clicks from an airport, and we're basically south and east of James Bay. If you think about it on the map, there's probably 4 or 5 other mines being developed in the 50-kilometer region around us. So that means the supply channels are already established, and it's a really great place to work. The Aboriginal partner in the neighborhood is called the Cree, and the Cree are very pro mining, and we use a number of the Cree services in our project, and they're an active partner of ours. Probably that would be huge, but the biggest point of working in Quebec today is they have the best fiscal regime in the world. They provide incentives so that you basically, for every dollar I get from an investor, it actually becomes $2 through a structure called a charitable buyback. It's also possible for American investors to participate in this. And generally speaking, what it means is you're able to finance exploration for 50 cents on the dollar. So that's a tremendous edge we have in Quebec that other jurisdictions don't have. Although structural advantages aren't worth a hill of beans if you don't have a great ore body, and we have a great ore body, and it's growing. We acquired it about 2 years ago before nickel took off. This was a 3.1 million ton historic resource of about 1.6% nickel EQ. Generally about 1% nickel, about 0.55 copper, and generally about 0.07 or so cobalt, and about 1.5 grams of palladium and platinum. So pretty interesting polymetallic mix. We took that, we modeled it, and we basically got into drilling it. We drilled it last November, December, and just to test the deposit to see if it was actually there. And we had great results. 7 of the 8 holes hit, in the same range of 1.5% nickel EQ. So we were quite bullish on that. We had financed the stock that previous summer in the 2021 at 25 cents and for hard and 40 cents for flow through, and then the stock ran to about 30 cents on this news in March of 2022, and then of course Canada being Canada, the shorts came in and bashed it quite substantially and do what they do. And then, of course, Russia happened, and it became sort of a nuclear winter for junior miners last sort of summer and fall. Luckily, we had raised capital along the way. We had some cash, and we basically thought, hey, this is going to be commercial. Let's establish a big program to make that possible. So we sort of mapped it out and laid out ultimately a 30,000 meter program, and we started to drill in last fall. And we reported so far on 5 of the 14 holes that we completed in September through December, about 6,000 meters of drilling, and we were getting some pretty spectacular results. So our top hole was released in mid-January, and it was a 40-meter hole of about 1.6% nickel EQ. That would be like a top 5 hole in nickel anywhere in the world last year. So a really great hole, and some other nice complementary holes. And we're drilling. We've been drilling since September. Drilling now. Probably we have 2 or 3 other holes similar to this. So it's been a very encouraging ore body. And we've been saying to the market that we feel that when we compile our 43-101, which we're in the process of doing, or will be completing by June this year, with a completely new metallurgical study as well, that we would think we would be reporting somewhere in the 8 to 10 million ton range of 1.5% nickel EQ or better. And what's neat about that, or what's novel about it, what's important about it from an investor perspective, is that if you get into that range of 8 to 10 million tons of this type of grade, then that would make it commercial. And when you get commercial from a valuation perspective, this is an important chart. You start to be ranked with other commercial discoveries around the world. So in this case, I looked at sort of some of the top nickel projects around the world, ranging from Talon Metals in Minnesota, Michigan area in the United States, to Noront, which is in Northern Ontario, to Botswana and Australia. So these are all examples of high-grade nickel sulfide mines. If you see us moving to the 8 to 10 million tons, then we'll be in this realm too. Generally speaking, this project would be worth about 50 million a ton at that point, based on these numbers, and we would own 80% of it. So that would be a pretty substantive move from here, almost a tenfold move valuation-wise. So great time to look at us from an exploration perspective if you believe we're going to deliver on those goods. And we are quite confident we will deliver on those goods. And we basically post our drill collars and azimuths on our site so people can model it themselves. And many have. And, it's a pretty exciting sort of development. Generally speaking, when you have a nickel sulfide discovery, what's important is obviously getting that commercial as quickly as you possibly can. Historically, they're not one pod deals. They're generally, when Mother Earth has a nickel sulfide project and makes it happen in the Earth's surface, these what they call a string of pearls, or these little pits of nickel burp up to the surface. And generally, they're in the sort of 4 or 5 of these. So every single nickel sulfide mine in the history of the world that's ever been produced was always multiple pods or multiple pearls. So we would expect that this would happen here. What's interesting is how we're going to find that. We're currently working about 1 square kilometer of our 45 square kilometers. And how we plan to find the next pods on this pathway to the mine is pretty interesting. We discovered a new technology. Actually, Talon Metals in Minnesota had used this thing called ambient noise technology, and it's developed by a company in Australia called Fleet. And they basically, what they do is they put like what looks like a little landmine. It's a communication device that they put on the surface of your land. It sends like a sonar pulse down, and it comes back as a reflected sound map. And through these sound maps, they're able to identify mineral thicknesses and mineral types, especially if you're able to correlate it with an existing ore body, which we have, of course. So we already have done, obviously, the drilling and have assays, etc., of this ore body, and we were able to give that to the fleet folks, and they will be able to cross-reference that sound mapping technology with the actual data and give you a real-time visualization of your deposit. So about 4 days after we deploy this on site this summer, we'll have a real-time visualization of our current deposit, and that'll be good because we may be able to see how we can add more tonnage to that fairly swiftly. It'll also help us to see if there's possibly another nickel zone underneath that may be additive to the cause. And probably most importantly, it develops a signature that we can look at around as we look at the rest of our 45 square kilometer area to see if there's other signatures of nickel there that we could go and target and drill. So as I said, we ultimately think, because it's an ultramafic deposit and the analogs were Lynn Lake at 22 million tons and Voisey's Bay at plus 50, that would ultimately end up getting in that category, and that would definitely put this into the $1 billion mine scenario. So very big upside. So the action plan is pretty simple. Keep on drilling. We funded ourselves in November of this year. We raised $4.2 million. And when we announced the stock was at 10 cents, because it was so savagely priced, because of the unfortunate instance in Russia and Ukraine, and generally bad conditions in the market, the fear was heavy. We felt we were really giving it away. So we went around to our existing shareholders and said, guys, look, we're going to have to do this round because we're about to become commercial. And after we're commercial, then we'll have industry as possible partners. But until then, we need to do this capital. So, but I said, look, it's like giving it away, so we should take it. The guys who sort of brought us here should take it. So that's what happened. All of our large shareholders stepped up. In fact, myself and my family invested $1.2 million. We were the biggest single investor. So we obviously believe we're in our own medicine here. And those funds will allow us to finish this drill program off to get us, we think, to this 8 to 10 million ton critical stage. And that'll be reflected in an updated 43-101 that would be out end of June, early July. And then the other thing we do is, obviously, we talked about this using this fleet technologies and seismic and gravity to find and identify the other pods. We'd have to raise additional capital to drill on that, and that would be something that we would do probably later this year. Basically, as news gets out, we would expect the stock to appreciate, and it's already starting to clean up as we're getting the word out. So at some point in time we'll have to reload, but it's not until we get a lot more news flow out, and hopefully it impacts the stock. So I would generally say, as investors, you'd have to love the nickel story, and that's why you should invest. But if you love the nickel story, you're going to love what we have else for you, because we got some bonuses and they're significant. So we're planning to spin out our copper gold assets. They were what we were focused on until we found the NISC project about 2 years ago, and they're pretty significant assets in BC and in Chile. And I'm going to walk you through those right now. So in BC, it's in an area called the Golden Triangle. The Golden Triangle is one of the more famous geological formations in Canada. And it's produced, several, mines, gold, silver, and copper, significant mines, world-class mines, and it'll produce more. So we're right here at the heart of it, right at the start, and we're literally the mountain that overlooks the town of Stewart, which is the gateway to the Golden Triangle. We're the yellow section up above here, and below us is Strike Point Gold, and Scotty Resources is north. This is Ascot Resources, about a couple kilometers to the east. They're building a mine there. That what hadn't happened when we acquired this project, and that's always a good thing. Now, we did some sampling just in the last 18 months, and basically determined there was 3 different half-ounce golds at surface. And this was done by Apex Engineering. It wasn't done by any Power Nickel employees. Always, whenever you're sampling, I'm always like, guys out there salting the sample. But no, in this case, this is definitely just a what was on surface. And it's also interesting. Strike Point's best results are right on our borderline where they had 2 ounces of gold. So it's pretty interesting. It's a really one of the better gold exploration places that has not yet been drilled, and we'll be spinning that out so that can be drilled later this summer. What might that be worth? We used to trade at around these numbers historically when we were known as Chilean Metals. So it's probably worth in that sort of the 15 to 25 million range, and that would be obviously a significant bonus to give to our shareholders. The other project that I would draw your attention to is the land packages we have in Chile. We've got 3 extensive packages in Chile ranging from 4,000, 6,000, and 8,000 hectares. Those are mammoth land packages. 8,000 hectares would be, as an example, the size of the city of Toronto, the whole city. So big areas. When you look at that map, you'll see that it's in the desert. It's in the Atacama Desert. And that's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing that we're able to get these land packages together. The curse is that, despite having these good land packages, these informations here, this is magnetics, are not necessarily completely reliable because there exists in the sand a mineralized limestone called caliche, which obstructs these signals. Now, what's interesting, when I discovered the Fleet Technologies ambient noise technology that they've been using successfully in Western Australia and to find copper and lithium in the desert there, we thought, wow, this could really work in Chile because apparently it sees through the caliche. So this could be a groundbreaking new approach to Chile and could really open up our possibilities there in our spun off vehicles. So that could be a great bonus for our shareholders. The last asset we could talk about in Chile is the royalty. We sold a project to Teck for $3 million and a 3% NSR some years back. We thought it would be in production by now, honestly, but when times got extremely tough, they mothballed the QB1 plant, and now QB2, which is being commissioned as we speak, they turned it into that, and so we were sort of left, with this what is basically a mineable ore body right now. It's 100 million tons of 0.4% or better, and they hadn't found the supergene. So this is a very interesting project. Now we just own the royalty, and we had, if we hang on to it, we'll probably get $6, $8, $10 million a year for 30 years, but maybe it's 5 years plus out. So today we probably could sell it for $5 to $7 million. So we've got a number of royalty companies looking at that right now, and that may be something we'd trigger here in the next little while. The management team is pretty lean, pretty focused. Just myself and Jimena are the operating people in the company. For example, in Canada, in BC, we use Apex, which is a very well-known geological consulting firm, and in NISC we use GeoVector and Joe Campbell and Adam Finley and the team, and they're highly reputable, very well esteemed, great guys to execute the program, and we're able to 100% write that off in the Quebec tax vernacular, so it's even cheaper for us to do it that way. Otherwise, our board is Greg McKenzie. He's an ex-investment banker who used to run Haywood, a very major investment bank in Canada. Peter Kent is a retired lawyer, a very savvy individual, and Les Mallard is our businessman and a very successful one at that. And all these guys have been very loyal and good shareholders. They're basically, the board has about 4% of the company. My family and I own about 20. Critical Elements, who we acquired the project from, or 80% of it, owns 11, and the Stern family own 11. Sam and his family brought me into the deal about 10 years ago. And BT Global and Palace Capital are institutional shareholders. So about 50% plus are in very strong hands. And a share structure of about 120 million shares outstanding. And right now we're trading at around, about 40 million Canadian, about 25, 27 million US, something in that order of magnitude. So a very, very modest price at this point. We've made a major nickel discovery. Nickel, especially in North America, is highly desirable. The Inflation Reduction Act that President Biden brought forward is going to drive the value of North American nickel much higher. You won't be able to have a full vehicle subsidy in 4 or 5 years when it gets to 90% if you don't have North American nickel. So we're already getting a number of calls from major users of nickel that want to come in and partner with us on the mine. And it's interesting when people would ask, "Oh, what's your plan?" I would have said our plan was ordinarily to drill it up, hopefully find 30 million tons, and then get it through a pre-feasibility study and then sell it to a big developer. But now we may end up joint venturing it or partnering it with a downstream nickel products manufacturer that they can manufacture and sell and get, whereas we get LME price of nickel, they get LME plus 6 to 14 for their powders. They get LME plus 125 for the anodes and fine wire. So it's a completely transformative, economic event. So we'll certainly have to look at that. But I would say from a time to look at investing in Power Nickel couldn't be better. Obviously, we're trading at a big discount to our peers if you believe in our exploration program, and we've given evidence that that's in fact the case. We've got assays coming back every 2 to 4 weeks over the next 6 months. So lots of news happening that people, as more news comes of the, good drill results, then you'll know that, hey, this is definitely going to happen in terms of the updated 43101. We're funded through that process, so we're not hitting the bid here anytime in the next 12 seconds. We've got certainly multiple materials to work with, not just nickel, but copper, gold, and palladium. The spin-off potential looks excellent, and the leadership team has done a good job of bringing it forward, I think. And then, best of all, we're able to finance this thing in a 2-for-1 way with being in Quebec. So, pretty compelling catalyst in the short term, and certainly if you're an investor in the batteries metal complex, I'd argue that'd be hard pressed to find a better deal than Power Nickel at the moment. Of course, I'm long and therefore recommend, so we'll put that out there. All right, that's the pitch. Why don't I go and sort of have a look at some of these questions that the audience is getting, and I will go through this. So there's a question. There was a 3.9 million ton resource estimate in July, and why was that pulled from the market? So what happened? It was published, and then that was pulled because the metallurgical numbers were more than 10 years old. So I guess it was unknown to us that was a requirement. So the BC Securities Commission said, "Hey, look, you got to do an updated metallurgical study." We had planned to do one anyway in order to be part of the PEA. We had to do that, so that's been commissioned. So we with that'll be coming, and we'll have that updated 43101 out in end of June, and that'll be the the update on the 43101. A question here. Pardon me, I'm just learning how to do this. There was a question: is what should shareholders expect to receive? In the spin out. Well, what'll happen is there'll be a percentage of the new spin out vehicle will be dividended out to shareholders day one. Generally speaking, you wouldn't dividend out the entire thing because it would probably be difficult for it to find its fair value right away. Probably something in the order of 20 to 30% will be dividended out immediately. We'd probably keep the balance inside Power Nickel and maybe raise 10% in the public to actually finance that vehicle, something like that. That's certainly what we're discussing at this point. The question is, what are the catalysts for revaluation of Power Nickel? Catalysts are pretty simple. I think basically the major catalyst will obviously be the updated 43101, where if we get into being in a commercial zone where people start to perceive us as being commercial, then that will lead to a revaluation into the probably 200 million plus range. And we think along the way the assay results are a bit of a catalyst, because as the assay results come out and corroborate our thesis on the drill body, on the ore body, then obviously people will start to make their own conclusions that we will in fact make it to that level and then beyond, and then they understand that, hey, this is just one pod and probably a multiple pod scenario, and just not exactly sure when the market takes off in this, but probably the assay results are the catalyst, and then these I think the spin-out announcement will be another catalyst, because it'll obviously allow the market to see there's separately another significant value left to be had, and in the copper gold, and that would be a good additive bonus for our shareholders. What is the value of your metal per ton? Basically, if you look at 1.6% or so right now, it seems like so that's it's around $400 generally a ton, something like that. So, what does the Mines to Mobility program impact Power Nickel? Generally, what's driving the nickel markets are two major things: the urbanization, which is people moving, to cities from villages, and agrarian economies. They're going in and they're buying pots and pans and fridges and stove, and that uses a lot of stainless steel. Stainless steel is 70% of the nickel market. The other major theme is electrification, and obviously that's the batteries, and this movement to mobile technology, etc. And the batteries right now are about 10% of the overall nickel market. But last year there was 10 million cars, EVs sold, generally about 60 kilograms in each EV, so of nickel. So as it goes forward, we'd expect that to continue to sort of be maintained. In 5 years, they're saying there'll be 40 million electric vehicles sold. Some figures even north of that. So the feeling is that very quickly the EVs will make up 50% of the nickel demand. So I'm not sure where we'll get all the nickel to do that, because this has got to be class 1 nickel, not recycled nickel, to make the batteries work. And class 1 nickels are tough to find. Those are very pure and generally high grade, like nickel sulfides, not nickel laterite deposits. So that's my view on that. And I think that's pretty much the last question. There was one question on the Fleet Technologies. Yeah, so with Fleet, I mean, basically we came across it, because of the Talon Metals using them, and when I saw the press release on Talon Metals, I thought, well, that's curious, never heard of that. So I called up Fleet, and they gave me a education, and I thought that was very interesting. But I thought, I'm not a scientist, I'm just a businessman. So I pulled in our science team and I said, guys, look, I've got this new technology. I'd like you to have a look at it. They were pretty skeptical, because scientists are generally very skeptical, which is good. So we gave them, and I said, look, I get you're skeptical, but the Talon Metals team is top tier. Technically, they would not have done this. It was just a flaky promotion concept. It was done because they thought it would help them find more nickel. So, I want to find more nickel. Please look at it. And if it's not for us, then fine. You make the call, but let's get educated. So after 2 or 3 meetings and a lot of back and forth from Fleet, they educated us on how it works, and the theory is very sound, and it's been working well so far. So it's pretty amazing, and I think it could, indeed revolutionize exploration. Particularly if you've got known ore bodies, and you can, choreograph off of that. So I think it has great potential for us at NISC. I think it has great potential for us in Chile later on with our copper projects. So we're pretty stoked about being able to use that. We'll start to use it in late May. It's obviously weather sensitive, so northern Quebec's very cold right now. Very would be hard on the instrumentation. So we'll deploy it in the spring. And basically within a week of deploying it, we'll start to get visualizations of our core deposits. And then based on that, we'll have a signature that we can then move around the pods of our 45 square kilometers, identify the next pods, and then hopefully get back at drilling those in July, and hopefully come back to the market with some success on those, and keep on with the positive news that Power Nickel's generated most of this year. So I think that's about it for now. We appreciate the opportunity to present here today. And if you've got any questions, by all means, there's a pathway to connect with us in the meetings, or you can send us emails at Terry at powernickel.com, and we'll do our best to answer your questions.